Hello everyone! Today in Binky's Gaming Thoughts, I will continue the Canticle of Silence and dive more into my theories and how it can relate to all our theories. So if you haven't watched any of the other parts of the Canticle of Silence, you probably want to check those out before listening to this one, because it will make more sense, of course. So let's get right into it. Silence 3. The Magisters face judgment. Surrounded by glory, the seven stood in the hall of apotheosis. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. There's a canticle, however, called the Canticle of Apotheosis, and which I'll get into in the future, eventually. Heedless of what festered in the shadows they cast there, of what stained and corroded footprints they left. But upon the throne of heaven they found no dragons bearing promised rewards. Well, the dragons, they're in their prison. They're not really there. Maybe they're beyond there. And the dragons actually are the earthling form of the old gods that the old gods would take. So they wouldn't necessarily be there in spirit form if they had already done the transfer to try to escape. But the maker of the world in all his radiance, and the seven cried out in shock and rage, for nothing they had seen in vision or imagined in their most avaricious dreams had prepared them to see his light with mortal eyes. So possibly all this is false. Corypheus claims there was no maker, that the throne was empty. We need scholars. Wait, we are the scholars. That's why we're analyzing the canticles, like moths who reach a bonfire. I like this simile because it reminds me of the saying, like moths to a flame. And with their lust for power, they were just attracted to the city, the concept of going there, doing it, and the way they kind of just rose to it too. And they were attracted to the city and the Fade, to this stronghold because of the lies that they were fed by the old gods. So they wanted so much power, they were just attracted to it. The seven burned, but the Maker kept them from death. Oh, that's nice of him. Although, if untrue, and what Corypheus says is true, I do wonder what kept them alive. Maybe something that the old gods established before their arrival, to whatever they established to make sure that the taint would happen and everything. Maybe it would keep them alive. Maybe they needed to return as darkspawn, so it was transforming them, keeping them alive, returning them to darkspawn, so that they can do the bidding of the old gods to free them from their dragon forms. Which makes me wonder if, since killing an old god doesn't really kill an old god, it just releases their form from that form, maybe they can take on human forms. Kind of like Corypheus. When he dies, he takes on a different body. He can't be destroyed. So maybe in a similar fashion, like those orbs, maybe that's how they can take on human forms again. And that's how they can be free, not only from their dragon forms, but from their prison. I didn't think of this last time. And he held the priests before his throne and looked upon them. His long-awaited children at last returned to him. Oh, I get it. Hoping that they had remembered him, assuming he is real. And he saw only hunger and envy in their hearts, only pride and desire in their eyes. Hunger, envy, pride, desire, all existing demons. And he knew that they knew him not. Of course they didn't know him. They were expecting old gods, and of course they didn't know him if he doesn't really exist. But they were expecting 7 gods in dragon form, and none were expecting just one god in whatever form he is. Then the Maker heard the distant cries of the sacrificed, everyone who died. A chorus of voices beyond counting, calling out for justice. So the infamous choir of silence. And all that they had done was known to him. Of course, because he's the all-knowing. And my papers are going through veil fire again. Oh yeah, I came up with my own little silly theory about how it is that I'm able to just go through veil fire. And it's because either infused everything with a special tonic, a veil fire resistant tonic, or veil fire because it's veil fire. It's not really here. Part of it is in the fade. So I can feel it as though it's here, but it's also in the fade. So that's my little explanation. The Maker of all spoke to the 7 then, saying, "Into my house you walk uninvited." Well, to them, they were invited, to be fair. "Demanding rewards you have not earned." Well, they were promised those rewards, to be fair. "On wings of death and suffering are you borne hence." Well, they did think that was what they had to do, to be fair. "The darkness planted by your betrayers in your hearts I see." Like I said in my last video, the taint occurred the moment they listened, the moment Corypheus heard the whispers of the old gods. "Did you not know when you chose to revere them over me?" You know, the old gods are said false gods. The Ivanurus were made gods, but are also false gods. "The old gods will call to you," also known as false gods. "From their ancient prisons they will sing. The calling is a song." Possible Ivanurus singing it, since Mythal does seem to sing the calling, supposedly. Plus ancient prisons, the Ivanurus, they were imprisoned. So, ancient prisons. Yes, the old gods, if they're in prison, maybe they're Ivanurus who are in prison. "Dragons with wicked eyes and wicked hearts." The name of the mission at the Winter Palace in Inquisition. "On blackened wings does deceit take flight." Archdemon. "The first of my children lost tonight." I think he's referring to the old gods here, because if the Maker is real, the first of his children, the first creations, were elves. But they're not worshipping the Maker, they're worshipping gods. Well, the Ivanurus. So maybe that. But the first of my children, that could also be Corypheus, because he was the first. So Corypheus, who began all of this, lost tonight. I think it's more that in reference to Corypheus. But there are some of you who believe the Maker to be Fen'Harel. And the first of my children, if the first of my children are elves, and elves were made false gods, Ivanurus are elves, they were made false gods, and Fen'Harel, but then Fen'Harel is also a false god, so he can't really be the Maker. But if he is, how is he there while he's slumbering? Questions. "You have chosen and spilled the blood of innocent for power. I pity your folly, but still more do I pity those whose lives you have taken in pursuit of selfish goals." Well, yes, selfish goals, but those goals were planted there. They didn't just wake up one morning and say, "Hey, I know, here's what I'll do." No, they had those goals because, like, hey, the person who was supposed to be here in this city, in this fade, told me to do this, promised me this, So yes, lust and greed for power led them to where they were at, but they didn't just pop up with those goals on their own. No more will you bear the light. To darkness flee, I banish you, and be gone from my sight. So the Maker is removing light from them, dark spawn, and turning them to darkness, beings of darkness. So ultimately, the Maker here is turning them into darkspawn. So the taint might have already existed, but this explains about the darkspawn part. If all this is untrue, and as per Corypheus, then perhaps circumstances turned them, or if the city was always black and empty, then the city turned them into darkspawn. Just being there, and with the taint started by the whispers being there, if the city was already black, they're turning into darkspawn. The darkness in the city spread to them because they were already tainted and took over their bodies, consumed them, transformed them, and thus creating darkspawn. Fitting name, that, darkspawn. And the veil ripped beneath their feet. Oh, look, another breach. And the seven fell. Oh. And the gates of the city slammed shut. And the wicked corruption they had carried covered it. Well, if it is true, it covered it. Otherwise, it was already there. And it opened no more. And the Maker in sorrow turned his gaze and no longer hoped for his children to return. So either this is true, or the city was already black. It doesn't matter whether it was golden or what it was before. It's black now, whether it was always black or not. The alarm is raised in Minrathous. So our doubtful friend made it to Minrathous. The great city of Minrathous, the faithful acolyte had through desperate measures reached. His heart like ice, certain that none save the Archon alone could hold back. Those wheels the high priests and their lackeys had set in motion. Yeah, well, you're too late, my friend. Sorry. No more did the old gods whisper in his ear. Yeah, because the others had already done what the old gods wanted them to do, so the whispers stopped the moment they arrived in the city, I presume. And because they weren't there anymore, the minute the veil shattered for the Magisters to go to the city, well, obviously, at that moment, I presume the old gods took on their dragon forms. So once they were in dragon forms, they were no longer in spirit forms, so they couldn't whisper anymore. They were kind of freeing themselves from their prison. No more did he hear any voice in his dreams but his own, for the same reason. And the mutterings of jealous spirits, and he knew that this silence boded ill. Yeah. No mere acolyte could approach the throne of the ferryman. Stave and spear blocked his path, and the faithful acolyte feared that all was lost. Oh no! But guided by wisdom and portent both, the Archon bade his guard stand aside. Good call. And the lowly priest brought before him, that he might know the meaning behind the holy dread which shadowed his every step. It's like saying, I know you've been feeling dread, and I know the reason why, and here's why. So of course he's going to listen. The design of the priest was laid bare, and the Archon turned with steel resolve to his appointed task. For only divine wrath could follow where the traitorous seven had gone. So he's willing to stop them, except he's too late. Now, I don't know if this means that he'd be willing to follow them to the Golden City, but then he'd be with the taint too, so I don't know how that would be possible. He'd have to do his own sacrifice. That wouldn't make sense. Or he'd follow to the place to try to find them. So So I'm going to stop this here, a little bit shorter than last time, because otherwise it's going to be longer than last time. And I'm going to resume shortly. Be sure to like and share the video since it helps people find it. And subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And I'll see you soon. Maseranas.